I was about 7 years old, my brother about 10. It was well past our bedtime when our mom woke up off the couch to put us to bed. Our dad worked construction out of town back then, so it was just the three of us in the house at a week's time. Up the stairs and to the immediate right was our parents' bedroom. Going left put you in the middle of the hallway. Taking another left down that hallway led to my brother's room. The opposite end was my room, which was also across the hall from our upstairs bathroom. I didn't enter the hallway or windowed doors. We always kept locked and rarely used. The door on my end led to a balcony, overlooking our front yard. And the door on my brother's end opened to our back porch. The house kind of leans into a small hill. My brother and mom both had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew this because I was always a light sleeper, and they just couldn't help flushing the door wide open. This night, however, my brother stopped on his way to his room and came back towards the bathroom. I'm gonna try and pee before I go to bed. The past 2 nights I've been afraid to walk into the bathroom. I keep seeing a man wearing stripes at the end of the hallway. I don't know if my mom wrote it off as my brother telling ghost stories to try and scare me, or if she was already half asleep and didn't catch it. But she didn't react to all of my brother's confessions. I, on the other hand, was terrified by it. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night. Years later, when I was about 18, my mom and I were having a conversation in our car about a dog we had for a very short time when I was little. We were sharing stories about Max's tendencies towards destroying my shoes and unruly behavior when my mom blurted out, "Do you remember that time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside the kitchen and started tearing open the big bag of dog food we had?" This really caught me by surprise, because in all the years I've lived in that house, we never once called the cops. Gone in our family in quite a rural WB neighborhood. I asked her what she was talking about, and she looked equally surprised as if she just revealed something by accident. "Oh, that's right. I never told you because you were too young at the time. One night, I woke up hearing noises outside my window. When I looked outside, I saw a man staring into my bedroom." She wanted to describe how turning on the lights caused him to take off running, and how she grabbed my stepdad's pistol before calling the cops. I can't remember all the details I gave them when they showed up. Tall, white male, wearing striped shirt and jeans, short dark hair, something like that. It didn't match the description of a man that they were looking for in the area. It turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge. Now, I know it sounds obvious hearing those two stories back to back, but it wasn't until a few years ago, in my mid-20s, that I pieced together that my brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who spent multiple nights casing our home. So last night, I was at a classmate's house working on a group project we had due tomorrow. I live in an apartment in the town where our university is located, and my classmate lives at his parents' house, which is in the foothills just outside the town. In order to get to the house, you have to drive along a relatively secluded, narrow 2-laned road for about 5 to 6 miles. We started working on that project at about 6 p.m. and I ended up hanging around for a while after we had finished our working. So I left his house pretty late, about 11, and started down the road back towards the town. I didn't realize how tough it would be to navigate the road at night. There were no street lights and the road was unkept and riddled with potholes. On top of this, I had no cell service, so I had to drive very slowly to make sure I didn't blow out one of my tires since I had used my spare a couple weeks back. I figured I was about 3 miles from the house when I rounded a tight corner and saw a pickup truck with a camper shell parked diagonally across the road. The manner in which it was parked completely impeded my path, and I couldn't drive around it because there was a gully on both sides of the road. The only way for me to go at this point was backwards. where there was a pull that I could use to turn my car around. At first, I couldn't see inside the cab, but when I turned on my high beams, I saw that there was a man slouched over in the driver's seat, his head resting against the steering wheel as if he'd been knocked out after a bad accident. I immediately sensed something was wrong. The way his car had just coincidentally come to a resting point and it totally blocked the road was a big red flag for me. I had heard stories from people that have been playing dead on the road as a way to lure unsuspecting people out of their cars so they could rob them. I decided, fuck this shit, and elected to go back to my classmate's house and explain what was going on. I threw the car in reverse and kept my eyes darting back and forth between my river and the truck. I looked and saw that I was almost to the pull-off where I could turn around. When I looked back, my heart skipped about 5 beats. The man who had been slouched over in the driver's seat was now walking at my car in a hurried pace while a few other men jumped out of the camper shell and started moving towards me as well. I panicked and accelerated backwards into the pull-off, which messed up the undercarriage of my car pretty bad. As I put it into drive, the guy was already at my passenger side door tugging at the door handle, which, thank the Lord, was locked. I only caught a brief glimpse of him, but his face appeared to be scabbed and leathery, definitely a meth head or some sort of drug abuser. I sped away and didn't slow down until I reached the house, constantly checking my rearview mirror to see if they were following me. Thankfully, they didn't tell me, and I reached the house and explained what had happened to my classmate, and we called the cops. I was grateful that my buddy's parents were kind enough to let me stay the night. They didn't find anyone on the road matching the description, but I filed an incident and they told me they would have a lookout for similar vehicles and suspicious activity. But holy shit, I'm still so shook up over it. I'm getting the same adrenaline rush I got when I saw the guy charging me. Whenever I think about it, it just terrifies me. I was watching my daughter's kids while she and her husband go out of town. They have a teenage daughter, let's say her name is Alyssa. At like 3 a.m., I'm woken up by a weird rustling sound and look out the window and see movement. I saw a boy emerge from the bushes on the other side of the house. I saw a bike tossed on the lawn that definitely wasn't ours. My first thought was a burglar casing houses, but since he looked young and came through on a bike, I figured scaring him straight would be enough for him to decide to head home. Didn't want to ruin a teenager's life by calling the cops straight away. So I went out on the porch and flipped the lights on and said, "Can I help you?" in my classroom voice. The guy looked surprised but not nervous. He was wearing a Leatherman style jacket, but once I got a clear view of him in the streetlights, he seemed much older than my granddaughter. Gruff and more wiry than athletic. He walked up closer to the house and said, "Yeah, I'm looking for Alyssa." I gave him a disapproving glare and hoped he'd realize that he came looking for a girl late at night, and a grumpy old person answered, "It's time to split." I'm thinking what must have happened is Alyssa knew her parents were going out of town, and maybe before she knew I'd be staying over, told a secret boyfriend to come over. It was late and I was alone with several kids, so I didn't want him coming any closer to the house. I also thought it was weird that he came so late and wanted to be sure Alyssa wanted to talk to him. So I said, "I'm sorry, who?" And he said, "Alyssa. You know, Alyssa's last name? This is our house." I thought he knew her full name. They must be at least friends. I said, "You wait there," and started to walk upstairs. I felt a sick burning in my gut. Instinct kicked in, and I yelled, "No, stop, freeze!" Marisha said, "You stay right there. This is private property. Don't step any closer. Wait there." So I go in and Alyssa is asleep just one room over from where the rustling first occurred, and I wake her up and say the effects of, "I don't know what the big idea was having friends over this time at night, but you tell them to go home." She has no clue what I'm talking about. I say, "There's a guy outside asking for you." Confused, she gets up and goes to the window. She sees him and goes white as a sheet. "He asked for me?" "Yeah." "By name?" "Yeah." "Call the police. I've never seen him in my life." I called 911 immediately, but as I was on the phone with them, Alyssa started tugging at my arm. "He's coming up." I had younger kids in the house to think about, so I kept the door latched and pulled it just enough for the latch and yelled, "Ask my husband. And none of us know and Alyssa's last name. Leave my property or I'm calling 911. He got angry and started yelling for her to come out. Thankfully, the police came quickly, and when he heard the sirens, he grabbed his bike and ran off. I watched where he was running and jumped into the passenger side of a car without the headlights or front plates and sped off. The police followed him in the same direction once I pointed them out, but they didn't get him. They advised that to take all social media details offline. She was sure she didn't know the person. They said they had a couple of similar reports recently and were looking into them. I got a heavy duty lock and she slept in my room for the remainder of my